Aparokshanubhuti. Aparokshanubhuti. There is a text in the Advaita Vedanta tradition called the Aparokshanubhuti, which translates roughly as direct recognition or the direct experience of the self. It is attributed to Adi Shankaracharya, the great philosopher and teacher of 8th century India. Scholars are honest that the details of his biography remain uncertain, no confirmed dates, no authenticated manuscripts from his lifetime. But what can be said is that someone in this tradition produced a remarkably focused and unsentimental teaching, one aimed not at ritual observance or devotional feeling, but at a single question: what exactly is doing the knowing? The Aparokshanubhuti belongs to a current of teaching that insists the deepest truth is not something to be achieved or earned, but something to be recognized as already present, already the case, never absent from any moment of experience. It is, in the truest sense, a text about waking up to what you already are. With that, let us enter the teaching itself. I bow to Sri Hari. He is the supreme bliss. He is the teacher, the Lord, the one who breathes through all worlds. He is the cause and he is the light. I speak now of direct experience. This is the only way to end the dream of the world. Those who are pure of heart should listen to these words again and again until the truth strikes like lightning. Who is fit to hear this? Only the one who has turned away from the toys of the world. Look at the pleasures of earth and the pleasures of heaven. Treat them like crow's dung, useless, dirty, and best left behind. This is the only pure dispassion. Understand this clearly. The self is eternal. The world is a vanishing shadow. This certainty is the sword of discrimination. Master the mind. Shut the gates of the senses. Endure the heat and the cold. Trust the map. Focus the eye on the goal. And above all, cultivate the hunger, the scream of the jiva, the local observer, to be free from the chains of me and mine. If you want to find the gold, you must dig. If you want to see the path, you must light a lamp. Knowledge does not happen by accident. It does not happen through rituals or posture alone. Truth is born only from inquiry. Just as objects cannot be seen in a dark room without a light, the Atman cannot be known without the friction of the mind. Start the fire of inquiry. Ask, who am I? How was this universe born? Who is the master of the show? What is the clay from which this world is made? I am not the body, this heap of elements. I am not the senses, the eyes and ears that flicker. I am the one, the witness, the changeless. Just as the pot is made of clay, the mind and its thoughts are made of a single, subtle substance. I am that substance. Of this, there is no doubt. The self is the one. The body is a collection of many parts. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? The self is the master inside. The body is the servant outside. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? The self is pure awareness. The body is a bag of meat and bone. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? The self is the light. The body is the darkness of matter. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? The self is eternal. The body is a rotting thing that vanishes. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? The self is bliss itself. The body is nothing but suffering, born in pain, sustained in effort, and dissolved in grief. And yet man says, I am the body. What ignorance is deeper than this? A man says, this is my house, and he knows he is not the house. A man says, this is my pot, and he knows he is not the pot. Why then, when he says this is my body, does he believe he is the body? This is the root of the nightmare. What is knowledge? It is the iron certainty of the wise. I am Brahman, the ground state. I am equilibrium. I am peace. I am existence, awareness, and joy. I am not this body, which is a vanishing shadow. I am without change, without form, without fault. I am the imperishable. I am the health that cannot be sick. I am the light that cannot be shadowed. I am the freedom that was never bound. I am the purity that cannot be stained. I am not the body. O fool, why do you cling to this bag of skin? You possess the self, the vast, ancient spirit that stands beyond the body. Why do you insist on making yourself a nothing? Why do you choose to be a ghost in a cage of bone? Listen to the maps, the Vedas, and the logic of the seers. The self is the master, it is the truth. But for someone lost in the trance of the flesh, it is the hardest thing in the world to see. The I is the one, it stands alone. The body is a collection of many parts, limbs, organs, fluids. How can the singular be the multiple? How can the king be the crowd? The I is the seer, it is the subject. The body is the scene, it is an object. You say, this is my body, just as you say, this is my pot. How can the owner be the property? The I is unchanging. It is the same I that was there in your childhood. The body is decaying. It changes every second. How can the eternal be the rotting? The I is self-luminous. It lights itself. The body is dull matter. It must be lit by the spirit to move or feel. How can the sun be the stone? Even the old maps of ritual admit this. They say the soul is different from the body. They say the soul is eternal and eats the fruits of its actions long after the body has turned to dust. The self is not made of parts. It cannot be divided, compounded, or assembled from pieces. It was never constructed, so it can never be dismantled. It has no limbs to fall away, no organs to fail, no layers to peel back. Whatever is composite will one day come apart. The self is not composite. It is the indivisible ground beneath all composition. Because it is without parts, it cannot be grasped by the hand. Because it has no boundaries, it cannot be measured by the eye. Because it has no beginning, it cannot be traced by the mind running backward through time. The instruments that divide and compare are themselves made of parts. They cannot capture what has no parts. Only the self knows the self. And so the self stands as the witness of all that changes, of bodies assembling and dissolving, of thoughts arising and passing, of worlds spinning up and collapsing, untouched, unaltered, as present in the dissolution as in the creation. This witness is not a thing among things. It is the light by which all things are seen. The subtle body, the ghost machine, is also a moving, changing thing. It is a temporary instrument. It is visible to the mind, and therefore it is an object. How can the instrument be the master? Thus the soul is separate from both cages, the cage of bone and the cage of wind. I am the Master, I am the Lord, I am the All-Self, the All-Form, and yet I am beyond them all. I am the changeless. The world looks real because we do not see the substance. Just as a man in the twilight sees a rope and screams snake, so the mind looks at the infinite and screams universe. When the light is brought, the snake does not run away, it simply vanishes. It was never there, there was only the rope. Brahman is the clay, the world is the pot. The pot has no life of its own. If you take away the clay, where is the pot? Therefore, the universe is nothing but the light appearing in 1,000 shapes. Consider a ring of gold. It is called a ring. It has a shape, a size, and a weight. But if you melt it down, the ring vanishes. Does the gold vanish? No. The gold was gold before it was a ring, while it was a ring, and after the ring was gone. The ring was just a temporary name given to the gold. So it is with the world. As earth appears in the form of a pot, as gold appears in the form of an earring, as water appears in the form of a wave, as mother of pearl appears as a flash of silver, so the self appears as the universe. Now hear this about the nature of Maya, the great veil. There are two powers woven into it. The first is the power of concealment, which hides the true nature of the self as a cloud hides the sun. The second is the power of projection, which throws up in its place the whole spectacle of name and form. These two powers work together, and their combined effect is the world as the unexamined mind experiences it. The power of concealment is not a thing separate from Brahman, any more than the shadow of a lamp is separate from the lamp. It is the not seeing that precedes all false seeing, and the power of projection is not a thing separate from that not seeing. It is the filling of the vacuum left by the hidden truth. Remove the concealment, and the projection collapses on its own, just as waking collapses the dream. Brahman alone is real. It is one without a second. It is pure consciousness, without a knower or a known, without an inside or an outside. Space, time, causation, these are names given to the modifications of the One. They have no independent standing. They are like waves talking about themselves as if they were not water. The world is not other than Brahman, but Brahman is not merely the world. The world is Brahman seen through the veil of Maya. Brahman without the veil is what it always was, boundless, partless, free. The veil does not change Brahman, it changes only the seeing. When the scriptures say the world is unreal, they do not mean it is nothing. They mean it is not what it appears to be. The rope is not nothing. It is quite real as a rope until the light comes. What is unreal is the snake. The world as pure appearance, as the play of the One, is not denied. What is denied is the world as something standing apart from Brahman, solid and independent, capable of binding the self. This is not a philosophical position to be adopted and defended. It is a seeing to be arrived at. When it is arrived at, it does not feel like an opinion. It feels like waking up. The fool makes a distinction between the soul and the Lord. He thinks he is a small drop and God is a vast ocean. But even a small gap is a valley of fear. The Upanishads themselves warn us, and the tradition has always read this as a solemn caution from the Shruti, the heard scripture, that whoever sees even a hair's breadth of difference between the individual self and the supreme self falls into the grip of fear. This is not the teacher's private opinion. It is the testimony of the seers who looked directly and reported back. When you see everything as the self, where is the delusion? Where is the grief? In the land of oneness, there is no other to steal your joy or cause you pain. We call it the Jagat, the moving world, but look closer. The cloth is nothing but threads. The pot is nothing but earth. The world is nothing but the light of awareness. The world is just a label we paste onto the infinite. Just as we treat the clay pot as a real thing in our daily lives, we treat the world as real. But the wise man knows the secret. He uses the pot, he drinks the water, but he never forgets the earth. Now hear what the text says about the deeper mechanics of the delusion. Brahman is one and pure, but through the power of Maya, it appears as though it has become many, as though it has divided itself into the experiencer and the experienced, the knower and the known, the subject and the object. This apparent division is called superimposition, the reading of one thing as another. Just as the blue seems to belong to the sky, which is in fact colorless, so individuality seems to belong to the self, which is in fact boundless. The superimposition works in two directions at once. The limitations of the body are read onto the self. We say the self is enclosed, small, mortal, suffering, and the reality of the self is read onto the body. We say the body is real, conscious, the locus of experience. Both movements are errors, and they reinforce each other. The practice of inquiry is the steady reversal of both. What are the names given to this layered misidentification? In the tradition, they are called adhyasa, the superimposition itself, and avidya, the ignorance that makes the superimposition possible. These are not two separate things. Avidya is the soil, adhyasa is what grows in it. Remove the soil, and the plant cannot stand. The jiva, the individual self, is not a reduced or damaged version of Brahman. It is Brahman appearing as if reduced and damaged, the way the full moon appears broken when seen in choppy water. The choppy water does not break the moon. It breaks only the reflection. Realize this, and the broken reflection is seen for what it is. The moon was never touched. The body and the mind are made of the not-self. They are instruments, they are appearances. They arise, they function, they subside. The self does not arise. The self does not subside. The self is the witness of their arising and their subsiding, untouched by either. How does the mind get tangled with the body? It is a trick of proximity. The self is nearest to everything, nearer than breath, nearer than thought, and because of this nearness, the mind confuses the nearest with the most intimate and intimacy with identity. But nearness is not identity. The sun is near the pot it warms. It is not the pot. Why do we see the body as the self? It is a trick of perspective. When you sit in a moving boat, the trees on the shore seem to be running. When you have jaundice, the white snow looks yellow. When you spin in circles, the world seems to whirl. Through the fog of ignorance, the eye gets tangled in the flesh. But when the sun of knowledge rises, the entanglement burns. The eye returns to its source. The world remains, but it has lost its power to bind. It is no longer a prison, it is a playground. How does the error arise in detail? Hear it clearly. The pure self, which is Brahman, is reflected in the mirror of the intellect. This reflection is the jiva, the individual experiencer. Now the jiva, forgetting that it is a reflection and not the original, takes itself to be the body and moves through the world in a state of constant anxiety and desire. This is samsara. This is the wheel. The wheel turns not because the self is bound, the self was never bound, but because the reflection mistakes itself for something solid. The moment the reflection recognizes itself as a reflection, it does not disappear, it simply stops claiming to be the original. And in that stopping, the anxiety and desire that were its constant companions also stop. This is liberation, not a going somewhere, not an achievement, a recognition. Those who have many desires are not ready for this teaching, but those in whom the flame of dispassion has already begun to burn, those who have tasted the pleasures of the world and found them wanting, who have asked the question and found no satisfying answer in the usual places. For them, this teaching is the final medicine. The perceptual errors go deeper than philosophy. Every sense organ is already a kind of superimposition. The eye presents color and shape to a mind that then adds identity, value, threat, and beauty. None of these additions are in the object. They are in the reading. The fire does not know it burns. The burning is added by the mind that touches it. So too the world does not know it is threatening or desirable or beautiful. These qualities are added by the unexamined mind. When the seeker begins to practice, the first discovery is how continuous this adding is. It does not pause. The mind is an adding machine, and it adds day and night, in sleep as in waking, projecting a film of interpretation over the raw surface of experience. Inquiry does not ask the mind to stop adding all at once. It asks the mind to notice that it is adding, to trace the addition back to its source, and to ask, what is here before the addition? What is here before the addition is the self. It has no qualities of its own that can be listed and compared. It is simply the aware presence in which the adding happens. It is the light in which the film is projected. You cannot see the light by looking at the film. You see the light by turning around, so to speak, by looking at what is doing the seeing. The student asks, if I have seen the Sun of Truth, why am I still in the shadow of the body? The books say that even for the knower, the arrow of destiny must finish its flight. Am I still bound to this flesh until it rots? The master replies, this question deserves a careful answer because the tradition is careful here. Prarabdha, the portion of karma already set in motion at birth, the arrow already released, is acknowledged by the texts as having its own momentum. Even after the dawn of knowledge, the body continues, the senses continue, the world continues. The sage eats and sleeps and ages. This is not a contradiction of liberation. It is simply the fact that what has been set in motion must run its course. The self of the sage is not touched by this running out, but the body, being a body, follows its nature. So the tradition does not say that prarabdha is simply cancelled by knowledge as if it never existed. What it says is that knowledge changes the relationship to prarabdha entirely. Before knowledge, karma is experienced as binding, as something that is happening to me, as something I must resist or seek to exhaust. After knowledge, the same events continue, but there is no longer a self that claims them as its own suffering or its own triumph. The arrow completes its flight. But there is no one standing in its path. What knowledge does destroy, completely and without remainder, is the karma that has not yet begun to bear fruit. The storehouse karma, sanchita, and the karma being freshly generated by new acts of ignorance, agami. These are consumed in the fire of realization. The field is burned, and new seeds cannot take root where there is no ignorance to receive them. Prarabdha alone remains, like the momentum of a wheel that has lost its axle, still turning for a time, but no longer going anywhere. So when the texts speak of destiny completing itself in the body of the sage, they are not calling the sage back into bondage. They are describing what is observed from the outside. From the inside, from the sage's own direct recognition, there is no bondage, no body owner, no fate receiver. The appearance of a body continuing is witnessed, the way you might watch a fire slowly consume the last of the wood after you have stopped adding fuel. You are not bound to the fire, you simply watch it finish. This is a more precise teaching than it sometimes sounds. It is not a concession to the dull-witted, though the texts do sometimes present it that way for those who are not yet ready for the full force of non-duality. At the level of absolute truth, the self was never born and so carries no karma of any kind. But the tradition is honest enough to account for what the sage and those around the sage actually observe, and it does so without retreating from the recognition that the self is always free. The Master says, "Now I will show you the sky ladder, the 15 limbs of yoga. These steps are the path of preparation and purification, and they carry both an outer and an inner meaning. The outer meaning matters. The inner meaning completes it. Do not discard one for the other. The tradition holds both, and the student who skips the outer for the inner before the inner is truly ripe will find the path slippery." These limbs are described in the canonical teaching under the discipline of Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, but do not mistake that for a purely philosophical exercise. The body, the breath, the ethical life, and the posture of the seat all play their role. The mind cannot be stilled in a body that is in disorder, and the truth cannot be recognized in a mind that is not still. The 15 limbs honor this whole arc. Before we enter the 15, hear this. The path of knowledge begins with the hearing of the teaching. It continues with reflection, turning the teaching over in the mind until every objection has been met, and it culminates in direct and steady contemplation, nididhyasana, in which the truth that has been heard and reflected upon becomes the living reality of one's own experience. The 15 limbs are the supporting structure for this deepening. The first is yama, ethical restraint. Its primary meaning is the classical one: non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-possessiveness. These are not obstacles to knowledge, they are its foundation. A mind that is violent, deceptive, or grasping cannot become still enough to see clearly. When the texts say yama can be understood as the recognition that all is Brahman, they are pointing to where the practice leads, not dispensing with the practice itself. Live honestly and harmlessly, and in doing so come to feel the truth of the one life appearing in all forms. The second is niyama, observance. It is the steady cultivation of inner purity, contentment, self-study, and surrender to the truth. It is also the continuous flow of the recognition, I am the self. Both the outer observances and the inner orientation matter and support each other. The third is tyaga, renunciation. It is the loosening of the grip on outcomes, on possessions, on the insistence that things be other than they are. And at its deepest, it is the seeing through the names and forms to the light beneath them, which makes all clinging naturally fall away. The fourth is mauna, silence. True silence is not merely keeping the mouth shut, though that practice has its place. It is the state in which the mind itself becomes quiet, the turning back of the word-making faculty toward its source, where words cannot go. The fifth is desha, the right place. Practically speaking, solitude supports practice, a place free from distraction and noise. At its deepest, it points to the recognition that the universe is empty of any presence other than the self, so that wherever the knower stands is already solitude. The sixth is kala, the right time. The time of practice matters. The early hours before the world stirs are traditionally honored for this, and at its deepest, it points to the timeless awareness in which all moments arise. The seventh is asana, posture, a stable, comfortable seat that allows the mind to rest without the body's discomfort pulling attention away. The deeper meaning that the only true posture is one in which thought of Brahman can flow without interruption, does not cancel the instruction to sit stably and without strain. The eighth is mulabandha, the root lock. At its literal level, it refers to the physical contraction at the base of the body, which steadies the flow of prana and supports the inward turning of attention. Its inner meaning is the grounding of the mind in Brahman as the root of all things. Both the physical practice and the contemplative orientation have their place. The ninth is dhyasa, equilibrium of the body, stillness and balance in the physical frame. At its deeper level, the absorption of the sense of the body into the still ground of Brahman. The 10th is dharkasthiti, the gaze. Steadiness of the eyes, traditionally, the soft gaze directed slightly downward or at a point ahead, neither straining nor wandering. Its inner meaning is the gaze of wisdom that looks at all things and sees only Brahman. The 11th is pranasamyama, breath control. The regulation of the breath, exhaling completely, inhaling fully, and resting in the stillness between settles the nervous system and makes the mind receptive. The inner meaning, the exhaling is the release of identification with the world appearance. The inhaling is the taking in of the recognition I am Brahman. The holding is the resting in that realization. The 12th is pratyahara, withdrawal, drawing the senses back from their objects so that attention is no longer dispersed but gathered. It is seeing the self in every object and drowning the mind in that awareness. The 13th is dharana, concentration, the steady holding of the mind on a single point, traditionally the form of the chosen deity or the syllable of the teaching. Wherever the mind wanders, seeing Brahman there and drawing the mind back to stillness. The 14th is dhyana, meditation. When dharana becomes continuous and effortless, it deepens into meditation, the unbroken flow of awareness toward the truth. This is the bringer of supreme joy. It is not a technique any longer, it is a state. The 15th is samadhi, absorption, the total falling away of the distinction between the meditator and what is meditated upon. The mind takes the form of Brahman and in doing so loses the sense of being a separate thing doing anything. This is not unconsciousness. It is the most awake possible state, the state of pure knowing, where the knower, the known, and the knowing are one. This samadhi is of two broad kinds. In the first, traces of the mind's activity remain, like ripples that have lost their urgency but not yet fully stilled. In the second, the mind has fully merged, and only pure awareness remains, undifferentiated, without object, without movement. This second is called nirvikalpa samadhi, the absorption without distinctions. It is not a permanent event so much as a complete recognition. Having entered it, the sage returns to ordinary awareness, not as someone who has achieved something and might lose it, but as someone who has seen through the dream and can no longer be fully deceived by it. As you climb the ladder, 4 thieves will try to stop you. The first is sleep layer, when the mind goes blank and falls into dullness, mistaking vacancy for stillness. True stillness is alive and luminous. Vacancy is just the absence of content. The seeker must learn to tell the difference and, finding vacancy, kindle the flame of attention again without discouragement. The second is distraction vikshepa, when the mind leaps toward the world's noise, memory, fantasy, planning, worry. The answer is not force but return. Again and again, without judgment, simply return. The third is the subtle intoxication of inner peace, the pleasantness of the meditative state becoming itself an object of attachment, so that the mind rests in the sweetness rather than passing through it to the truth. This is a refined trap, more seductive than the grosser ones, because it feels like progress. The remedy is the recognition that peace is not the goal, the self is the goal, and the self is not a pleasant feeling. The fourth is stiffness, the hardening of the mind into its habitual shapes, the resistance to the final opening. Old patterns of self-definition, even subtle and benign-seeming ones, resist dissolution. The remedy is surrender, the deepest letting go of the sense that there is a self doing the practicing. The world of the seen has been turned into the unseen. The seeker has turned the mind into the shape of the sun. He lives in eternal happiness. His mind is full of the nectar of consciousness. Now know this, in the state of continuous and unbroken contemplation, the distinction between the one who meditates and the one meditated upon begins to dissolve. The practice is no longer something being done by someone. It is awareness resting in itself. This is the fruit of all the preceding steps, not something that can be manufactured or forced, but something that arrives naturally when the ground has been properly prepared. And when it arrives, what is seen? Only what was always the case. The self that was being sought was the self that was seeking. The awareness in which the world arose was the awareness that was aware of the seeking. There was never a moment when it was not present. There was never a distance to be crossed. There was only the not noticing, and then the noticing. For those whose minds are ripe, this path is easy. It is the gift of the Master. It is the lightning bolt that ends the long night. This entire teaching, from the first verse on dispassion to the last word on samadhi, is a medicine designed for one specific ailment, the false belief that you are other than the self. Everything else is commentary. The ailment is ignorance, not sin. The cure is recognition, not punishment. The doctor is the teaching itself, working through the student's own steady inquiry. Those who study this, reflect on this, and meditate on this with a pure and one-pointed mind will arrive at direct experience, Aparokshanubhuti, which is not a theory about the self, but the self's own recognition of itself. There is no higher attainment, because there is nowhere higher to go. There is no greater freedom, because there was never any bondage except in the dreaming. Here ends the Aparokshanubhuti, the lightning bolt of direct experience.